Peace, family. Sister Victoria X here. Welcome to today's read along. We're going to pick up exactly where we left off on yesterday, reading inside of the book How to Eat to Live by Elijah Muhammad. For those of you who may be new here, my name is Sister Victoria X. I am a women's accountability coach. I help women to find their flow between home and business by helping them to set up routines and systems so that they can occupy both spaces. Because I believe as women, we do not have to choose. And so that is what I do. And I also enjoy reading. So that's why you'll find that I do quite a bit of read alongs as well. And so that's what we're doing here. Please go ahead and share this out and drop a comment saying done below. If you would like to get notified when I do go live so that you can be a part of the live audience, go ahead and text READ, READ, to 424-306-0585. And I will let you all know when I do go live for the book readings. This is not the first book that I have read on my page. So if you're someone that you're just tuning in, please feel free to go to my read along playlist, and you'll find two books there. You'll find Real Love by Sister Dr. Ava Muhammad. You'll also find The Law of Recognition by Mike Murdoch, which we still have to finish. I'm putting a pause on that for now until we have completed these two books for the month of Ramadan. So the format goes, I will read this book for 15 minutes, which typically is about 3 chapters, and then after the 15 minutes of reading, I will give my commentary. Because I know and understand that some of y'all, a little bit of y'all don't care about my commentary. Y'all just here to hear the book, and so that's the reason why I do it in that way. So we're going to go ahead and start our reading of How to Eat to Live by Elijah Muhammad. We are currently on chapter 16, Food Can Be Life or Death. We can shorten and destroy our lives by the way we prepare and cook the food we eat. Allah, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever, taught me that all of our food, not including fruits, should be cooked and cooked until thoroughly done. And it should be seasoned with salt where necessary. The food we eat should not be poisonous food, such as the flesh of swine and of wild animals, birds, and beasts. We should not eat fish that weighs more than 50 pounds. Water scavengers in the form of the fish family, and other water animals of that kind. As we know, there is much animal life taken as food from water today that we should not eat. The believers of Islam should be aware and not eat such foods. In cooking your food, be sure that you cook it thoroughly, but not to the point where it loses its taste. Safeguard your delicate stomach that has to digest all that you eat by not burdening it with trying to digest half-cooked food or raw food and the acid gases from such foods. This is what hastens the doctor to your bedside, and after that the undertaker, and after that the grave digger. Remember, we kill ourselves by what we eat and how we eat it. Just as food is our source of life, it is also our source of death, as God has taught me. Food keeps us here and it takes us away. For long life, take long intervals between your meals and do not eat over one meal a day. Chapter 17. How to live more than 100 years. Allah God has taught me in the person of Master Farad Muhammad how to eat to live, so that I also may teach you. He desires to extend our lives from a short span averaging 62 years to a span of 1,000 years, or for as long as we desire to live. He said there is no set time for us to die. We kill ourselves daily by means of what we think, what we eat, and what we drink. Think about it, and you will agree that we kill ourselves. As I said in an earlier chapter, How to Eat to Live, there is no way of prolonging life except by being careful, watching and examining what we put into our bodies to sustain life, and the regularity of our eating and drinking habits. We have been taught what to eat and what to drink by a people, the white race, who has never obeyed the law of religion, never obeyed the law or religion of God. These rules Allah God gave Moses' people in the Ten Commandments for their good, clear as a mirror, law and guidance which they should not forget. However, they kept none of this. Everything that Allah said, thou shalt not do, they have ignored and said, thou shalt do. Therefore, the Christian race is no example or guide for one who seeks to obey the law of Allah God. For God now threatens to remove them from the planet Earth. If they would stop deceiving the people, making them believe they are what they are not, and trying to change the natural religion of Allah God into the unnatural, which is false, their doom probably could be delayed. There is a sect among them whose members call themselves Orthodox Jews, a few who still try to follow the Ten Commandments given to them through Moses. These are wiser, more skillful than the Christians. How to eat to live, Allah God said to me in the person of Master Farah Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever, that we who believe in him as our God and Savior should eat but one meal a day, once every 24 hours. Eat nothing between meals, not even candy, fruit, or anything which would start the stomach digestive process. In this way, our stomach of the proper foods and drinks at the proper time. In this way, our eating of the proper foods and drinks at the proper time would extend our life to 140 years. This will protect us from sickness. He said if we would start our infants eating one meal a day as soon as they are able to partake of solid foods, it would enable them to live to an age of 240 years. I then asked him, how about eating once every 48 hours? He said to me, you would be ill only one day out of 4 or 5 years. I asked him, what was the cure for that one day of illness? He said, fast 3 days and you will be and you will be all right. I asked him, what about eating one meal every 3 days? He said, you will never be sick if you eat once every 72 hours. This is about 2 meals every 6 days, which would extend our lives to a span of 1,000 years. For there is no poison from the previous meal 3 days ago which has enough power to do you any harm. The fast destroys the accumulation. The fast destroys the accumulation of food poison. The body is made up of water, chemicals, stone, metals, vegetation, and air. All that is in the earth all that is in the earth is in some form in our bodies, and you have no birth record of the earth. Although there is a record, you probably do not have it. It is a very old earth. It is not as you have been made to believe. Only 6,000 years ago, it is more than 6 trillion years old, and it will be here for a long, long time yet. What comes out of it, such as life, cannot live as long as the earth itself, but it can be made to live a very long time if carefully nursed. According to its nature, as you see, and scientists teach you, the long life of the California redwood tree, Cicinna sempervirens, there is mention in the Bible of Allah God, a saying that his people's life will be as the tree. There is an oak in Arabia under which they claim Abraham met God that is still alive today. Allah God never intended that righteous lives should be cut short of 100 years on this earth. I have experience in living and eating according to the way he taught me for a while, and I found it one of the happiest and most peaceful ways of which I ever dreamed. I began with eating one meal a day and forced my family to do the same for several years, until I was picked up and sent to prison for teaching Islam in 1942. Of course, the government said they sent me up for failing to register. That really was not the reason, for I did not come under the draft law at that time. Some of my followers, 60, 65 years old, were sent to prison at the same time. Persons of such an age were not desired by the The Christians made it hard for us to live as we had been. They deliberately put swine or the essence of the swine in everything, and the assistant warden made mock of it when I told him my followers lived on nothing but bread to avoid swine. He said that even the bread had swine in it. We used to make a meal of dry, baked white potatoes. We had it hard, and all of my followers now in prison still have it hard. All those converted to Islam in prison at present suffer in order to avoid eating the divinely prohibited flesh of the swine. And all that God said, thou shalt not do, they said, thou shalt do. You who read this book know the Christians are the great false teachers of God, who care nothing for God's law. Since returning from prison, it has been hard for me to adjust my eating habits. For many days in prison, we had to eat 2 or 3 times a day in order to make up for one meal a day through trying to avoid eating the divinely prohibited flesh of the swine. This caused me and the others illness after we had cleansed our stomachs of bad food and had begun to eat at the proper time. When we were eating the right food in the right way, we had no doctor bills and no medical bills. There were no medications to be found in our medicine cabinets. However, as soon as we changed and began to eat between meals, 24 hours, we began to call on the doctor and his drugs, and it brought about one complaint after another. I would never have suffered today from bronchial asthma if I had not disobeyed the law of the right foods to eat. Now I am on the way back to try and adjust my life according to the way Allah God taught me. I experienced eating once a day for several years, and I experienced eating once every day, well, every 2 days for a long time. Then I experienced eating one meal every 3 days, twice a week. Never had any symptoms of disease or sickness when I was eating once every 48 hours and once every 3 days. With this method, you feel as though you never were sick in all your life, even if you are 100 years old. Nothing shortens our lives but our foolish selves. Chapter 18. Proper food for body and mind equals good health. Oh, I skipped the chapter. I skipped the chapter, you guys. I did. Okay, I'm gonna go back to chapter. I'm going back to chapter 17. Wow, I skipped chapter 17. Sorry, guys. So what I just read, I read chapters 7. I read chapters 18 and 19. So now I'm going back to read chapter 17. Yeah. Why and how we pass. Where did I start reading, y'all? Person need enough for after grammar. Okay. Oh wow, yeah, I think I skipped the whole little situation. Okay, so I'm gonna start over because I didn't read the chapters I was supposed to start at. I started at we can shorten and destroy our lives by the way we prepare and cook the food we eat. So I started at chapter 18. I should have started at chapter 16. So we read chapter 18 and 19 today, right? And so I'm going to label this chapter 18 and 19. And that's actually going to be the end of our reading for today. Wow, 18, 19. And I'll do 20. That way it's 18, 19, 20. And then I'll come back tomorrow and read chapter 16, 17. Okay? Walaikum salam, Ramadan Kareem. So I'm going to continue the reading. So we just read chapter 17. No, I'm gonna finish it there because I don't want it to be like choppy for those who did stay in for the reading. So this is chapter 18 and 19 that we read today. We did not read chapter 16. I'm going to come back on tomorrow and I'm going to start at chapter 16 and we're going to read 16 and 17. But today I started at 18 mistakenly. I don't understand. Well, you know what? Allah's the best of planners. So I do not desire to understand. Can't explain it that I skipped 2 whole chapters. So those are the chapters for today. And now we're going to go ahead and go into our commentary. So y'all, I ain't gonna hold you. So this was two very good chapters, and it's so crazy because I knew about the messenger having to go to prison, or going to prison and all of that, but I did not know like his true experience, if I'm being honest, about having to basically just eat bread, from what I'm reading, to avoid the swine, and they were intentionally putting it in every single thing. So I really enjoyed that part of it. I feel like it allows, it's like when you know more about people, you draw closer to them. And so that was a very beautiful part of the story, of the chapter that I enjoyed. The other thing was, at the very beginning of chapter 18, it said food can be life or death. And at the very beginning, he starts says we can shorten and destroy our lives by the way we prepare and cook the food we eat. And it says that we should eat all of our food cooked except for fruit, and cook it until thoroughly done. And that just makes me think about what we were talking about on yesterday, about how this whole idea and this desire that we have to eat this raw food, or we want the food medium rare, or we got to have a little pink in it, or whatever the case is. And it's like, clearly it's saying here that in okay, so let's say this, the most beautiful part that I enjoy about this is that he also shares the reasoning behind it, and he also shares the science behind it. Not the science like, you know what I mean, H2O and CO2, like, no, not that science, but basically sharing the fact that I'm not saying don't just eat this way. I'm saying because it is affecting you in this way. So he goes on to say that the food we eat should be cooked thoroughly through. Why? Because it allows our stomach to digest the food easier, and when our stomach is not having to fight to digest the food, it is not wearing on our stomach. And that's a compilation of the last couple of chapters that we read. He didn't say that specifically as far as wearing on your stomach, but he did say, he does say, safeguard your delicate stomach that has to digest all that you eat by not overburdening it with trying to digest half cooked food or raw food and the acid gases from such food, right? So that's what he's saying here. You know what I mean? Eating raw food makes our stomach work harder. And as we know, that's not something that we get a second, like we can't redo our stomach. You know what I mean? Like, so that hard work that it's having to do to digest this raw food is what's aging us over time. Because as he mentioned in an earlier chapter, it's like water hitting a stone or water hitting a rock. Um, that it does not, affect you immediately, but over time it does cause long lasting effects. So I really enjoy that part about it's the reiteration. And I know that us, as a people, we need that reiteration. Some people might read it like, okay, you said that, but the reality is, how many times has he told us not to go a place and we went? How many times has he told us to stay away from a person and we kept going back to them? So it's not about he keeps saying this, but history shows that we have a habit of not listening the first time. So I got to say it this way. I got to say it this way. I got to say it this way. And inshallah, God willing, I mean, if it be the will of Allah, that we will catch on one of the times and enjoy the reminder versus being naggy about the reminder. Then he goes on to say the food we eat should not be poisonous food, such as the flesh of swine and of wild animals, birds, and beasts, right? So even when we get to talking about eating fish, you know what I mean? I mean, eating animals, like, why would you want to eat a wild animal that is going, you know what I mean? That's like going out. You don't know what they're eating. You don't know what their diet is. You don't know what they're, coming in contact with. You don't know if they eat something poison that might not be poison to them, but because now they eat it, it becomes a part of them, may be poisonous to you. So why would you want to even eat a wild animal, right? If you're watching this on the replay, hit hashtag replay in the comments. And if you want to get notified when I do the read alongs, text READ, READ, to 424-306-0585. But that's just like, it's almost like common sense. But I say that in the way that once you hear it, it's like, duh, I should have known. So I'm not saying it in the way that, oh, everybody should know that, because all of us have our own unique, different set of experiences. So what may be common sense to me may not be common sense to you. However, but it's definitely one of those things that when you hear it, it's like, oh, duh, that makes sense, right? It's not a whole lot of convincing that has to be done for someone to understand that eating wild animals to which you cannot track their diet is bad for you because you don't know what they're eating. Um, the other thing he said is that just as food is our source of life, it is our source of death, as God has taught me. This is like another reiteration that we've heard from the previous chapters. Just being mindful, like we're not taught to be mindful about the food that we eat, right? Yeah, we're talking about if you want to be healthy and da 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 da, but we never draw the connection to, is this killing me or is this increasing my life? Is this going to allow me to stay here longer and not just stay here, right? Because we want to make it very clear. Not we. I how do I want to say this? Because I want to say this again, right? This is me, my opinion, what I am saying. You know what I mean? I don't want to say just opinion because some of the things are the things, but I am not representing nobody but myself when I say what I'm saying. But right, we don't just want to live just to live. Right? Yeah, I want to make it to 100 years old. Is it worth it to make it to 100 years old, but you barely walking? You barely can take care of yourself. You got to land on and depend on everybody in your family, right? Is it worth it, or do we want to be functional livers? Do we want to be healthy living to a certain age to where we're still able to move about as we see fit, right? So it's not just about living past 76. It's 60. I think the age was 67. It's about living past 67 functionally to where we're able to still have some level of liveliness about us, not being just old and just sitting there. That's not what this is about. So I really enjoyed that part because when he's saying that, that's what he's saying. It's like it's our source of death, or come on now, back up off me. Back up off me. Hold on, let me see. Let me get my headphones because it's tripping again. Every time I get this battery request, it starts tripping. So I'm gonna put on my headphones for Instagram real quick. All right, can y'all hear me? And back up off me. Thank you. Okay, can y'all hear me? Just put a couple hearts and then we can go on with the commentary. Hello, a one in the chat if you can still hear me, y'all. Okay, excellent. The other thing that he says is there's no way of prolonging life except by being careful, watching and examining what we eat, what we put into our bodies to sustain life, and the regularity of our eating and drinking habits, right? And so that also includes, like he stated in a prior chapter about the effectiveness of changing your diet. He also said that it's not just about what you eat, it's about what you take in, mental food as well. How are you thinking? And that goes right in line with that because it said, accept us by being careful, examining what we put into our bodies to sustain life. So what are you listening to? What are the people around you? What are their energy is like? Because we can absorb energy that goes into our body. So it's very important, the eating component, because the eating component sustains the physical body. But there's another component of how we think that is also to be considered when we talk about the longevity of life. Because as we know, the simplest way to describe what I'm talking about is like a plant. A plant is a living thing. But if you say to a plant something bad, and then you also say something good to an opposite plant, you'll see the effect that just the words, right? The words will have on there. It's the same thing with us. We have to take in things that are going to pour into us, that are going to enrich us, that are going to make us feel good, that are going to make us to strive to be better, including our own self-talk. What are we thinking about ourselves? What are we saying to ourselves? How are we extending grace to ourselves? So that is the importance of, if you want to prolong life, to be able to live the life, then we have to be mindful of everything that we take into our bodies in addition to the food. There are 2 meals every, okay, and then he goes on to explain about how, the difference from his own personal experience, right? And that's the other thing that I really enjoy. It's not something that I'm saying, you go do. You go do this. I'm telling you to do this. It's, I've done it too, right? And more importantly, not more important, but I don't want to say just as important, but not only did Allah God tell me that this is how it should be, how Not only did he tell me this is how it should be, and I tried it and I know it works. And I tried it and I know it works. Because when he was in jail, he had to eat 2 and 3 times a day just to be able to get that little bread. Right? So there was no consumption of pork. And there was a switch even for him, saying that I was calling the doctors. We began to call on the doctors and his drugs, his medication, developing bronchial asthma. Right? But then when he came out and he started being able to adhere to the diet, adhere to the restriction, eating the right foods at the proper time, he himself can verify and bear witness that, hey, no more doctor calls, no more medicine. So in addition to, this is what I was told, this is the instruction that I was told to give you, I've done it, and I can tell you that there's a difference, that this is real, that this is true. Not to mention, if we also think about just the believers in the Nation of Islam that follow this, most of the believers, you can't even tell what age they are. Why? Because they're adhering to this. The minister himself, most people don't know that he pushing 90. He looking 30 years younger. Right? So there's proof there's evidence, okay? Nothing shortens our lives but our foolish self, right? And there was the other point that I wanted to make, because when we talk about, how he was saying how our food, the food that we eat, okay, he said there is no set time for us to die. We kill ourselves daily by means of what we think, what we eat, and what we drink. Now, and I want y'all to bear with me, because I might say something now that is a little controversial. And please correct me if I'm wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Now, when I think about the people that are out in the world doing crazy things and living a certain type of way, I don't see those as being the same people that are conscious about the food that they put in their body and the food that they put in their mind. So when we say that we are the authors of our own deaths, it's also to say, right, that the way that our food, the food that we put in our body, both mental food and physical food, affects the way that we behave. It affects the way that we interact with people. It affects the people that we call into our lives, right? So, yes.
Can you say that PlayStation? I'm gonna get
Baby, I told you once I'm done with this, I will get it. I don't need you to get it. I will get it. Just give me about 5 more minutes and I'll be over there, okay? So I would dare to say that if we would clean up our food, both mental and physical, that we will have a lot less of the travesty that's going on, right? Because even to speak to the point that was made by the messenger in the earlier chapter, that the food that we eat affects how we behave. And I can bear witness on that. If we have not properly disciplined our stomachs, disciplined our habits, then we get mad when we ain't got food at a certain time. We don't know how to act. We be losing our minds. Yes.
the pound cakes was cooking.
Who put it in the oven?
Mom and Daddy.
And he left?
And we wanted us to ask you, I think.
Okay.
So
Okay.
is it okay if I turn off the oven and get it out?
If you want to, yes, you can. Right? It affects the way that we eat. It affects the way that we show up. So that's, I don't know. I don't know if it's, I don't know. But correct me if I'm wrong. You don't hear about the health conscious people that's out in the street doing all this crazy stuff. Not to say that they can't be. I'm just not hearing that. Right? And I would guarantee that if there's another component, that mental part, that mental food that's being put into them. Right? Because once we have a certain type of acceptance and we start putting the right things in our body, we know the difference. Right? those first couple of weeks or months or whatever, when you're starting to adhere your body to one meal a day, you might be angry. You might feel a certain type of way, right? Because your body is getting used to it. But as the messenger says in the earlier chapters, as you train your stomach, it will not affect you because you are training your stomach to be hungry at a certain time every single day. So, what are you mad at 3 o'clock? I mean, what are you mad at 10 a.m. in the morning for? It's not affecting you because you've trained your body. You have trained your body to be hungry at a certain time. Okay. So that is the end of my commentary. Like I said, you all, if you would like to get notified when I do come live to do the readings, text READ to 424-306-0585 or click the link in my bio and click the text me button and then just click READ to that number. I will be coming back tomorrow. I did mistakenly read chapters 18 and 19. However, tomorrow I will be coming back to read chapter 16 and 17. But I think that this was a really good chapter. Allah makes no mistakes and He is the best of planners. I don't know how I skipped my bookmark, but what's His, whatever's required, He'll make it so. So thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you for coming on. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Like, comment, and subscribe over here on YouTube, and I'll see y'all on the next video.